A bus driver is worried about a little boy who walks to the forest behind his school every day instead of going to class, so he decides to follow him. He is shocked by what he finds along the way. Scott Morrison loved his job as a school bus driver for 40 years. He was nice to all of the kids who rode his bus, and he often talked to them to keep them busy. Scott was a Boy Scout when he was young. While he was a scout, he met the love of his life, Lyra. They got married and had a beautiful son, Harry, years later. Scott and Lyra were happy with their marriage and never thought anything could go wrong. But fate had other things in mind. When Harry was only 8, Scott and Lyra lost him at school because he was being picked on. Some of Harry's classmates made him walk to the hilly area behind his school, where he slipped and fell into a deep valley. From then on, Scott didn't think kids were always good, and he thought they could be mean. After that happened, Scott stopped being a scout and started driving a school bus. He didn't talk to the kids much at first because he was still upset about Harry's death, but as time went on, he got over it and became friendlier with the kids on his bus. One day, Scott noticed that a little boy on his bus was unusually quiet and sat by himself. He looked upset and didn't say anything the whole way there. When they got to school, most of the students ran to their classes, but that boy stayed at the school gate. Scott waited for a while on the bus, hoping that the kid would soon go inside. But he saw that the child skipped school and went to the empty forest behind the school instead. This went on for a few days, and Scott started to worry more and more about his safety. He remembered that Harry had also been forced to walk to the area behind the school and had died there. Scott decided to follow the child into the forest one day because he thought the child might be in trouble. He kept a safe distance from the child so he wouldn't be seen. He watched the boy walk deeper and deeper into the forest. The boy stopped suddenly, took off his backpack, and started picking up trash and putting it in his bag. Scott didn't know what to think as he stood still and watched the boy clean up the forest. When the child suddenly saw him, it scared him. He grabbed his backpack quickly and got ready to run. Scott stopped him, though. Hey, he said as he walked toward him. I don't want to make you feel bad. I'm just wondering what you're up to here. Don't you know who I am? I'm Scott, and I drive the school bus. What are you called? The boy looked at him with tears in his eyes. I recognize you, Scott. Don't tell anyone I'm coming here, please. Stanley Hayes is my name. What are you doing here, Stanley? You shouldn't be alone in the woods if you're a little boy. It can be risky. He was shaking as he said, I'm trying to make Dad proud. I want to be like Dad. What? Scott was confused and asked, what do you mean? Stanley said, my dad used to be a Boy Scout. He always helped people. One day, Dad died when he tried to save a girl from a bear. Mom and I moved to this town after that. I loved being a part of the scout squad at my old school. But there isn't one at my new school. I come here by myself every day to clean up the forest. Dad always told me to keep the place I live in clean. Scott smiled at Stanley in a nice way. Stanley, did you know that you are very kind and smart? I'm sure your dad is happy with how you're doing. But it can still be harmful to you. Why didn't you ask for more help from your teacher? Stanley bowed his head and let tears run down his cheeks as he said, that's because all the other kids laugh at me. They say I'm dirty and smelly because I pick up trash. Because of it, they even call me a dirty cleaner. I don't like school. I don't want to return to that place. So I've been skipping classes lately. Good Lord. Scott cried out. He felt bad that Stanley was being picked on because he did something kind and nice for a young boy like him. Scott made up his mind to help Stanley no matter what. Hey, Stanley, he said as he quickly made a plan. I have an idea that might help you. Idea? Yes, come with me, and starting today, you won't have to miss school. Nobody will make fun of you. Instead, everyone will work together to help you. Scott went to Stanley's principal's office, where Mrs. Stepson worked, and told her what had happened. He also told her that he used to be a scout and that he thought the school should start a scout program to encourage kids like Stanley to keep doing good things. Mrs. Stepson was sad that Stanley had to go through so much, so she decided to help Scott put his plan into action. A week later, Stanley's school set up a contest to clean up the old forest and said the winning class would get a prize. At the end of the cleaning week, Stanley, age 6, and his team of first graders surprised everyone by winning the competition. From then on, the forest was always clean, and no one was afraid to go there. Stanley's classmates stopped picking on him and started telling him how good he was at school. Stanley's mom was very grateful to Scott for helping her son and making him feel less lonely at school. That wasn't all, though. Scott's faith in the innocence of children was restored after he met Stanley.